what inspired you to write your memoir now?
I had threatened to write a memoir for a very long time. And to be honest, we all know my self-help books. My expat books were just memoirs, self-help. I was always writing my own stories. We all do, right? We all insert ourselves. But the pandemic, it grounded us. Yeah, that was it. After 40 years, Rodney and I were suddenly grounded. We weren't traveling for the Foreign Service. We weren't traveling. I wasn't traveling Expat Expert. We weren't traveling for Maple Bear. We literally, it was like, okay, I have no excuse. That was the point. I had absolutely no excuse anymore. It was like, sit down and write this, or just shut up about writing a memoir. I felt I had something to share, but mostly I wanted to get the stories down. There were a lot of stories I wanted to get down, but it was really time for me to excavate the lifelong anxiety and grief that I had had over the death of my mother when I was a child, and to look at, all right, well, okay, that happened to you, but you managed to have this great life. So how did that happen? And that sort of came out as I was writing the book. I thought, well, I'm writing about my Auntie Goldie, who was my philanthropy role model. I was writing about my father. I was writing about all the people that were very important to me and guided me, either in person or through their actions. So I suppose I wanted to, I'm very much into origin stories, whether it's an origin story of us, this organization, or my daughters and organization. But I like to think that we need to give credit to all the people who came before us. And we don't do that anymore because, as you know, children now emerge totally curated and perfect and really have no, really, and nobody else helped them. Sorry, I had to throw that in. Because I'm old. And that was the other reason. I was pushing 70. So it was like, okay, I got to write it now. But I really felt that it was important for me to get down the stories of all these people who really were just so very important to me. I didn't want them to be forgotten. And I really did have to finally write about my mother, because I was joking just before we started with Sarah that I am writing another memoir now about Maple Bear, which was the story with my husband and I, and that's another story. But when I was first writing this, somebody said, you should be writing about Maple Bear, not your story of losing your mother. And I said, well, Maple Bear is not really my story yet. It's his story. I'm not ready to write that. I need to write this. And I needed to write my own, and Joe and I are joking about this life review. I wanted to look at the pieces of my life, and I needed to start at a certain point and see how I ended up and try to determine how I ended up there. And I cannot recommend the exercise of doing a life review, either writing it or with quilting or with art or with whatever you can do, because you will be amazed at what emerged. And what emerged for me, the most profound thing that emerged for me was that my mother dying very suddenly when I was a kid was actually not the trauma of my life, which is why I thought, oh, well, my mother died, that's my trauma. My trauma was actually the second marriage of my father, when he remarried and my mother disappeared with our belongings, with our house, with my friends. It was the double loss that happened. But as I like to say, and I figured out that it was that informed how I was able to do a lot of this expat stuff. And how I was able, for example, to talk to children at international schools who would say, did you move around a lot when you were a kid? I was like, well, no, I didn't. And then I put it together going, well, you know what? I do understand it. So I was seeing the genesis of my own understanding of a lot of issues. And I really did see the genesis of really, that was the trauma. That was, my mother dying, as bad as that wasn't as traumatic.
I loved how you were able to honor the people, but be honest at the same time. Particularly love the poignancy of the chapter around your dad, and it particularly resonates with me because my dad was a dentist too, and yeah, but just you've done it very honestly, but very honoring.
It was about honoring, and it was also about not saying, it wasn't about settling scores. I talked about that a lot in one of the interviews I did. My audiobook. It was like, you know what? I got a great life. In fact, we joked the first time Joe read, she said, Rodney comes across so well. You're not saying anything about Rodney. And I was laughing, going, you know what? She's right. But I didn't deliberately, because I thought, seriously, if you read this book and you saw the life we've had together, and I'm going to complain about him not folding the laundry, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, yes, there were other issues. Trust me, a long marriage, but I felt it would have been churlish to say not nice things about whether it was Rodney. I didn't talk a lot about my brothers. I have some challenges sometimes with my brothers, and I thought, you know what? And I spoke to them about it. I was like, you know what? If I have nothing nice to say, I'm not going to say it. Doesn't mean for the writers among this group that you can't get it all out in the first draft. I got it all out. But fortunately, I had an editor who was like an angel on my shoulders. You know, you don't need to say that. And you don't need to say that about your stepmother. And you don't need to, fine. And so we took everything out. So I got the therapeutic, cathartic value of memoir and, you know, getting it out.
Robin,
and then I took away.
Before we open this to the floor for the rest of our FIGT family here, I would love to know one key piece of wisdom that you would like readers to take away, because it seems like there's many takeaways in this book.
Yeah.
So what is the thing that chimes your heart in terms of takeaways for the reader, please?
I saw this question is a good one, because there are, I mean, obviously I can't help myself. I'm giving advice about everything, but it's about being positive and finding positives. Because if, you know, those of you who've read the book, you know, the Swami, my famous Swami Shamu, you must understand unchanged first before you understand change. He also said, only surround yourself with positive people. And I remember when he said that, yeah, we're sitting on a mountaintop here, Swami. That's pretty easy. Everybody's so happy and whatever. No one's got a care in the world. But I took that to heart. And it was not just about surrounding myself with positive people, but it was also looking for the positives. So the chapter I wrote about what I called interregnum, when I was looking for when I was between Expat Expert and going, you know, what the hell do I do now? And it was crazy. I wrote about all those things that I tried, all of which failed. You know, a video series that 2 people watched, a blog that only my relatives read, you know, but each piece of that, I found something positive. So the blog about taking piano lessons, like, okay, didn't work out. No one read it, but I played the piano again, or I did, you know, or the video series was awful, but, you know, Jen Lee, my videographer, we made all the Finca Cantros videos together. I made a long-term relationship with somebody. I always looked for something positive. Now, that's, you know, easily said and done, but surrounding yourself with positive people and surrounding yourself, I would say, depending on how old everybody is in this group, young people. Because one of the things that has just been brilliant, it's just been brilliant for us, is we are surrounded by my daughter and this project here in Costa Rica. People, not only are they young, they are doing something. They are taking action. They're not blah, blah, blah about, you know, oh, well, you know, we're going to plan. They're doing stuff. That positivity is incredibly important. So I would say it applies to when you go arrive on a posting. You know, are you going to have coffee with the person who's going to, you know, blather at you about how you know the shelves in her family room aren't right, you know, within their staff quarters, which used to make me nuts. It was like, really? Have you looked out the window at the woman? Remember, that was in my first book. If you're complaining about blah 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 the shelves in your family room, look out at the woman on the street selling the cabbage and the cigarette, and that's her take for the day. So it is, listen, we all know about gratitude so I suppose positivity and gratitude, I think that they're intertwined, Doreen. If those 2 messages, it's really, it's about being grateful for everything, but looking at the positive. So that would definitely be my takeaway.
I think I hear you say that it's also, it's not only focusing from the positive, it's coming from the positive as well as moving to the positive. So it's not only a forward momentum, it's actually an internal motivation that you built up over the years, and that I think most of us end up there somewhere. So we would love to know if who would like, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Let's start with Mariam's question.
Well, can I just press pause, Doreen, because Deborah had a question first, and then we'll go on to Mariam. That's okay.
Let's go to Mariam's first, because mine is way off track.
Okay,
we'll come back to you, Deborah. Did writing this memoir help you gain some sort of closure of your mother, on the loss of your mother? and also with dealing with the real trauma about your father's second marriage. So I think she's asking about what was the experience of closure that you had as a result of taking this walk with the book?
I can tell you that, and I have said this, that that the closure I got, and I did get some closure, as much as you get closure, because as you know, there's no closure with grief. There's moments when you accept it and you whatever, but closure is that's a strong word. There's no closure, essentially. But what I did come to terms with, or what I did actually say, okay, Robin, your mother would be proud. The closure I got was examining my life and seeing how incredibly purpose-driven it had been, how I actually had taken the role modeling that I had from her of, okay, this is what you do. You volunteer, you give back, you do what you need to do. You stay modest, you stay humble, you stay this was her role modeling for me. And that's what I feel, okay. When I looked at my life and I went, yeah, not bad, because, we don't often, I used to say this to expat women, I want everybody to stand up and go like this, give yourself a pat on the back for surviving this. I did give myself a little pat on the back for realizing, okay, despite, and I'll just throw in what Miriam was saying about my stepmother. My stepmother was the opposite. She was, because now I can really dish about her. And it's okay, I can dish about her because even my stepsister, her mother said, my mother wasn't very nice to you. So I'm not talking out of school. But she was somebody who did nothing but clean her house all day and paint it and shop and no volunteering, no nothing. It was one of the reasons I was whiplashed on the values. It was wait, I had one mother doing this, and now I'm watching this other woman who doesn't really do anything, gives back nothing. So, I realized that no, I managed to get past what my stepmother had presented to me. I will give her credit. She taught me how to clean. I know how to clean a toilet, thanks to her. But my mother, I honored my mother by living the life that I led, I think, or that I am still leading. And I feel that, okay, in that sense, I had some closure, whatever closure is. So I've been with that answers it, but that's how I achieved some measure of, okay, I can move on now. She would be proud of me. I felt that she would be proud of me.
Wonderful.
Claro, as they say in this part of
Claro, yes.
Claro. So we have a question on the floor from Joe, and then let's circle back to Deborah's question. Joe, what would you like to ask?
Hi, Robin. I would just like to ask a question, which is, I know the answer, but I think the other people might be interested, listening might be interested in the answer, because, memoir, you can easily say that this is a memoir because it's a genre that people understand, but there are actually lots of different sorts of memoir. And writing a memoir isn't necessarily writing your life story from beginning to end in a linear chronological form. Robin has done her memoir in a way that I consider to be actually more accessible for people. It's not easy to write. You really do have to craft it. But I would like her to explain how she's put her memoir together, because I think it could be really interesting for everybody else to see that this is what I consider to be a bit of a new way of doing it.
I always love being, first to market with an idea, Joe. To be honest, I would have to credit my editor for helping me craft how the stories ran. When I started writing it, and for people who want to start writing, you just have to sit down and start writing, and it may be that, the first 100 pages you toss. But I realized I had to find the moment. I had to find the moment to start, right? And to me, it was that, okay, I'm doing this play. Where do I belong? I couldn't even believe it. Even when I was writing that, I was going, was I only 14? And then I pulled the picture of myself and went, I was 14, and I was thinking such deep thoughts about, where do I belong and all that stuff. But we were probably a little different back then. But I had a starting point for it. But then everything else, and it did go in a linear way. There's certainly in the early parts, it was more linear. But I knew that there's just so many pieces of our lives, which you only understand when you get older, that all these pieces connect. It's like this, you are connecting, it's not a quilt because you're moving it around, but it's like that big board I was saying, when you're starting to connect all the pieces of the pictures where you've been and the rest of it. When you realize that what you're saying now, oh, that was really from before, but now you're also thinking about the future. So how do I do that? How do I write about all those thoughts? And it has been commented upon by various people who have read it that, you really put weird ideas together, but they work, I mean, so even writing about fear of flying, which could have been just Robin the drunk on a plane because she's scared shitless, is hammered when the plane takes off. It could have been a very simple story about why I have to drink so much alcohol. Not anymore, by the way. I don't drink. Everybody was so concerned. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of that stuff. But it was a way of, okay, I could do that, drinking, or I could reflect on, wait a second, what do I remember about my very first, my first experiences with air travel? So it really was taking something as crazy as getting drunk on a plane and thinking, oh my God, I remember walking on the tarmac to this prop plane with my mother staring at my shoes, and with the kishka, this whole thing, the salamis in the luggage, and my mother fretting, going, oh my God, I hope we don't lose the salamis. It was a whole other story about flying. And then it was a nice way to work in these lovely guys from AMJ Campbell International who, I met on a plane, which I thought a lot of people have commented on that story going, really? Is it the elevator pitch, the airplane pitch, the drunken airplane pitch, whatever you want to call it? So they were disparate ideas around fear and hypnosis. I mean, someone told me that the biggest laugh she had in the whole book was when I said, the hypnosis didn't work, but I still think of Kevin Costner every time I take off. Because he told me, think of somebody to distract you. And I thought, I'm thinking of Kevin Costner. This is like, this is like him 20 years ago before he did his Yellowstone thing. But you know what I mean? Like all these things came back to me. So really the idea of going, but it is in the writing though, Joe, as you would say, it's crafted. And I really do. I know I had the ideas and I know how I could put them together, but I absolutely have to credit my editors with helping me refine it so that it wasn't, wait, what's she talking about now? Wait, she's on to another side. Like, in other words, making it coherent. But I don't think that life is linear. We're sitting here now and we're all talking and I see people I've known for 30 years or 40 years. So life isn't right now, although I have to say right now has become my mantra. That's my in the moment. Right now, I'm in a happy place with all these people, who I love and who I used to speak to all the like regret. That's right now. But if you're reflecting, it has to be more than right now. Right now is in the middle, and everything that you're reflecting about is around the right now. That's just me explaining my writing process, I suppose, which I've never really thought about that much, but that would be it.
That's a very visual picture that you just painted for us in terms of the reflecting being in the center and everything else that comes from as a result of the reflection being the spokes in the wheel. Thank you for that. And thanks for your honesty.
It'd be a Venn diagram. It'd be a Venn diagram. The middle is right now.
Yeah.
But then what do you think of? And remember that, I mean, I knew when I wrote this that, the stories were going to be funny and some of them would be funny, but it would be in the writing. So you had to really think about, well, what were you writing and what were you saying? And, and I did cry writing some of this stuff. I mean, there's no question. I mean, the essay about my cousin, Joey, going to her funeral, it was like, even I was sobbing, going, oh my God, I hope everyone likes me. Like, I mean, I did have those incredibly cathartic moments, but then there were other moments, my son, his favorite story is me at that Scottish ball drunk, going, what the hell? I'm going to dance with a guy in a kilt. He just thought that was the funniest story. So I mixed it up. So it wasn't going to be just about pain. Because let's face it, I mean, my life isn't just about pain, it's about joy. We all have joy and pain. And I think that a memoir that's reflective of that has to have both. That was my feeling.
I've written in the chat, but you probably can't see it, Robin. I love how it is concise, but it's also deep at the same time. And how you've managed that is, and making me laugh and cry all at the same time. Sorry for interrupting.
I'm happy.
No worries. So can we circle back now? I know we're probably going to be changing gear because Deborah gave us a little heads up. What is your question, Deborah?
So you have a book that's written with, 30 years of experience. What are some of the lessons those of us working with companies can extract from the personal stories that we all identify with, but how do we extract that into a currency, so to speak, that will be understood by employers, managers, people relocating families?
Okay, I don't want to be negative because I want to be positive.
Yeah.
So I'll be negative first and then positive. So the negative is they're never going to hear us. They've never heard us. I mean, to be honest, I just think we're just, no one's listening. Yeah. The Gucci money when 30 years ago it was, oh, you'll shop. Here's some money. What if you don't shop? I hate shopping. So the negative is that absolutely they're not hearing. But what I was saying before, though, the positive is the money should go to the people who are ready to do it on behalf of our community. So the money doesn't need to go to, we need to empower the communities, and now it's everybody, it's not just women. We need to empower the families themselves to take personal responsibility for their families with the support of professionals who are, you know what I'm trying to say is like, if we keep waiting around for someone to understand us and to get what we want, we'll all be 1,000 and we'll come back 100 years from now and be going, oh yeah, remember they were trying that 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen.
Absolutely.
However, as we've all proven, when we take the initiative, when we say, screw you, we're going to do it, that's what I think we should focus on. How do we empower the people who want to take the lead? For example, those corporations that want to do the Gucci money, they should be funding families in global transition. You know what I mean?
Instance,
that's a for instance. I mean, fine. Here's an organization, not only on its roster is there everybody from A to Z who can do this. Let's fund them. It takes it off us. It's a win-win. We don't have to deal with it. We're funding the people who actually want to do it.
Exactly.
So I think when in these conversations, because how many of us have been in those insane conversations? I think I wrote about it where I said it was the original form of gaslighting. Oh, you're going to have no problems when you repatriate. Oh, you're just crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm having problems. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're wrong. Yeah, you're the shit disturber. That's what I was, right? So, instead of being gaslit by people saying, oh, we're doing stuff, really? Not really. I just think, I know I always feel better, as I think most people do, when we take charge. So how do you figure out how to take charge? Everybody should say to their company or their organization, fine, listen, you guys, you hate doing this. Tell you what, cut that Gucci check to Families in Global Transition or to Outpost or to Access or to like all the organizations that are absolutely helping the communities. That would be my advice if I was doing it. And I can see I'm still a shit disturber. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Thank you. That's you've set my brain working. Thank you.
Excellent. That's what I like to do.
Great answer. Now, I believe that we have a question from Joe.
Yeah, from Joanne Husky.
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
Oh, hi, Joanne. There you are.
Hi, Robin. Finally, I'm seeing you. I have so many things that I'd love to talk to you about, but I don't want to hog this because
we were in Beijing together.
So much in common, and so many of these things I could just totally relate to. But one of the things, some of this discussion you're having about, I started a company in Taiwan to help people relocate to Taiwan, and everybody at the time said, women can take care of this and nobody should pay for this. And like you said, we just said, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to pay for it. And I think things have changed. I do think things have changed over these years. I mean, it's been a long time. But my question for you though, Robin, I have many, but here's one. Expatriate Press was a decision that you made all of a sudden, like, you're going to write the books you want with the names you want, and you're going to market them yourself. So first of all, talk about how you set that up, how that works. And
well,
one other thing about it is that you have to market yourself. You are the marketer.
It was a decision. I had to take that decision, Joanne, because this is to talk about publishing and then also publishing on subjects that are not necessarily mainstream, which I'm still fighting. With this memoir, I couldn't find a publisher. Everybody said to me, why do you just find a publisher? Yeah, you think, instead of having to go through the hell that I went through self-publishing this, which is a whole other story of like, oh my God, when I published my expat books, it was a book. Now it's an ebook, a Kindle, a social media ad, an audiobook, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my God, it's too much technology. I want to kill myself. But back in the 90s, because my expat books were not considered mainstream, I knew where the market was. I knew where everybody was. And Joe, Joe was the self-publisher. And we said, well, maybe I should do this myself. And as it happened, I would say technology came along very conveniently. It came along and invented Amazon when I needed it. It's like, oh, yay, Amazon. Now everybody can buy my book. And by the end of the 90s, and the internet was created, so I could create Expat Expert, which was amazing. It was like, oh, thank you, technology gods. And then they started to create self-publishing platforms. So I thought, okay, well, let's see. I think that might work for me. And at the time, it was the decision that I needed to do this myself, that publishers were not going to help me with this. And here I am 20 years later in the same scenario, because I joke when I went for a memoir, I can say this with this, I'm old, white, hetero, Jewish, privileged, but like literally, I do not hit any marker of what a publisher wants to publish these days. Right. I'm not famous, because that's the absolute thing. I'm not famous. And to be honest, somebody said to me, well, your mother died. So, oh, right. If my mother had died and I became a crack addict, then it's a story. And I recovered from being a crack addict. What I'm trying to say is, you had to fit certain parameters to be published. So I guess because I'm the kind of person okay, no one's doing it for me, I'm going to do it myself.
Well, can I answer that question? Let me add to that question, because I was shocked, really, as you know I was, when I read in your book that you said you have social anxiety, because you've spent 30 years of your life out talking to everybody all over the world.
40 years. 40 years.
40 years. Amazing.
40 years of being a foreign service wife, expat expert. You have no idea what I had to do with Maple Bear. Oh, I'm looking at schools in, Porto Velho, Brazil, going, great light. I had to talk to people constantly, which was why now I'm kind of working on being a recluse, because I don't have to talk to anybody. But yeah, no. I mean, I had to do it myself, and I had to live with what I knew were my own limits too. I knew for me to go into a community for 3 days and speak, that was the best way I could do it. Leave them wanting more. Go in, go out. And everybody went, oh, she should have stayed longer. No, if I'd stayed longer, you would be kicking me out. What I'm trying to say is I knew my own rhythms. I knew how much I could take myself. I could have done without the fear of flying, because, I can't remember how many flights I got off and puked before I met the person meeting me, because I had so much vodka on the plane. It was embarrassing, but I had to, sober up and, be fine. Hello, here I am, expat expert. But I needed to do it myself, so in a lot of ways, the self-publishing was just an extension of, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. Yes. But having said that, I had incredible people helping me. I had editors, I had videographers, and I give all the expat women who, I couldn't name everybody by name, the shout outs to all the women who were my publicists. I mean, it was insane, the amount of work that people did on my behalf, organizing lectures and all that. It was amazing. So that was my framework for me. I'm not a person who likes big crowds, so it worked for me. Because even with this memoir, I spoke briefly to a publicist who had no idea. I said, did you read the book? Because he said, would you like to do a TED Talk? I said, did you read the book? I don't think I want to do a TED Talk. Do you understand? Not happening. I had to, and this is a lesson for everybody. You know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You know what you like to do. You know how to play to your own strengths, and you know when to go, you know what? This isn't for me. So for me, I didn't want the big speaking events, the conferences and all that. I wanted the small groups of women. I liked the workshops. I liked a group of 50, 100. Really, that was for me, because I knew but I guess if we were doing a Venn diagram again, in the middle was I had to know myself very well, and what made me tick, what I could do, and what my anxieties were. So self-publishing was pretty much invented for me. Now, like I said, self-publishing at this age, you really have to, I spoke about this in an interview, you need a PhD in humility, because it's just, okay, you needed it before as a writer, this room accommodates 200 people and there's one person sitting, hello, let me buy you a drink. So the humility part has to come with, okay, you put this book out. Is anybody reading it? Is anybody buying it? Is anybody reviewing it? And then you just have to go, well, you know what? You're doing it for a cause. It kept you busy during the pandemic. Then my personal mantra always was, if one person walks away changed or helped or feeling better, great. So I guess that's part of the PhD in humility. That's one of the courses in the PhD in humility. You have to go, okay, how do you change how you look at it? Because honestly, it's so demoralizing. I was joking before. I've had old friends who've said, when I say, like, have you read it? You know me 55. Well, I had 2 library books to finish first. Okay, like, you just have to go, yeah, and remember all the people who have responded and loved it or said, listen, thanks for writing it, or you made me feel better, or whatever. It's a very, it's complicated. I mean, there's a lot of emotions at you, and let's face it, writing about your life and putting it out there. I'll just tell you this one quick story that I was so nervous before I wrote this. Hang on, I got to the rain's coming. Hang on.
Only on Zoom.
Before I wrote this, Rodney and I joked about it. I said, oh my God, I feel like I'm putting a picture of myself naked on Facebook. And there's no emojis. No one's even laughing. No one's nothing. Right? He said, no, Robin, it's like you're going out on a stage and you're worried that the audience is going to say nasty things to you or throw things at you. And really what's happened is you're going out on the stage and there's no one in the audience. So I said, thank you. That's the last piece of my PhD in humility. Like, yeah. And that's really what it's been like, because it's very, as I said, it's a very humbling experience. I mean, I've had family react to it, and I've been so happy when my family has said, oh my God, this is wonderful. You're talking about our great Auntie Goldie or whatever. But basically, you have to do something like this at this stage, because I'm not building a career anymore. That's the difference. At this stage, it had to be for myself. And that's, so that's where I started. It was like, okay, who am I? What do I want out of this? And really, I guess that's been my driving mantra all along.
So well, thank you. I'm just about to hand this back over to Sarah to wrap it up. This has been absolutely wonderful to have you with us and to see the FIG family and community in such concert. And I think all of us are really glad for your mentorship that you've provided us over the years. I just want to do one sentence recap. What I heard that hit me today was play to your own strengths. Create your own PhD in humilities, and perhaps we should be empowering families to take more personal empowerment and support all the people who function within this organization. So thank you for coming, Robin, and I'm going to hand this back to our FIG affiliates leader. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for visioning this book club with me, and thank you for everything that you do behind the scenes to get us all here.
Oh,
Sarah, just before you wrap up, I just have to say one more thing, because
it's about the cause, because that's what I'm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, no, the cause for sure. But I've been looking at my phone because, again, last night at I don't know what time, we get this WhatsApp that our daughter is in labor in San Jose. I've been watching this. Before we started, she was at 8 centimeters. We're going out of our minds. So if I start to go, it's because we're a little wound up here waiting for this grandson to be born. And I thought, yeah. And I was sure that somehow I was going to get a WhatsApp right in the middle of this. Okay, he's born. And then I would have to go run screaming out. So I just want to say, if I sounded a little distracted or more distracted than you're used to me, because this is usually me calm. I'm not calm. That's what's going on. So Sarah, over to you now.
Oh, amazing. And you're all in our thoughts and prayers, and it makes me feel like absolutely one of your family. So just really, thank you so much.